Welcome to the U3 Media Podcast, where our mission is to unite the world through coffee, connecting you to the farmers and coffee entrepreneurs through the stories they share. I'm Christy Ross, and joining us today is Baylee Engberg, Managing Director at She's the Roaster and Account Manager at Allied Coffee. Welcome, Baylee. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Christy.
Absolutely. So in the coffee industry, you have made a name for yourself. You've been around for like 18 years. Is that right?
I think it's like 17, but yeah, who's counting, right?
Yeah, round up, right? But you also are currently on the leadership team of the Roasters Guild. Walk me through the evolution of your career and just sort of share some pivotal moments or best decisions you've made along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the best decisions I made were accidents, which made them that prettier, I guess. But I started as a drive-through barista in the greater Seattle area, which if you've ever been, you'll recognize these little shanties on the side of the road with gray water tanks that serve coffee. So I started there when I legally could work. So I think I was just shy of 15. From there, made my way into cafe settings, learned some latte art. And then I bonded with one of the roasters at a coffee roastery that I worked for. And he kind of taught me how to roast on after hours.
That's awesome. So when you look at some of those decisions though, and you say they were accidents, but when you get to be on a leadership team, you're obviously doing something right. I mean, were you attending all the expos? How were you making sure that you were visible within the industry?
Avid volunteerism. I'm apparently gluttonous for it. I said yes to every single opportunity, for better and for worse. And if you have an opportunity to apply for something, I think I just, without hesitation, applied. So yeah, if you just do that, I did go to a fair amount of expos, and it all kind of depended on the company I worked for. The larger companies obviously send you without hesitation. The smaller companies don't have the budget for that. So yeah, I just inserted myself where I could.
Well, and it's about actively participating, right? Being part of the process, being part of what's going on, which I think is super important. Okay. Well, so on that note, I want to talk about one of your biggest side projects, is lifting up other women and getting them into the roasting profession through the She's the Roaster. So how did you first get involved in that?
My mentor, her name is Jen Apodaca. She founded She's the Roaster, and it was kind of a clap back to lack of women representation at U.S. Roaster Championship. And yeah, it really is just a network. I think I've heard nonprofit before. I've heard organization. I've heard community. I think it was just to get more like women and non-binary folks into roasting. And it was trying to stop this gateway that was happening of people wanting to do it and having to go through these really abstract, like roaster apprenticeships, or, it just took so much work for people to get there. Roasting jobs are pretty seldom. You could have a company that has 6 cafes, but you still only have 1 or 2 roasting machines and 1 or 2 operators at that. So I think it was just sharing resources that otherwise were gatekept from people, and just wanting to see more like women and non-binary representation in that community. It's just completely overrun by men, 100% overrun by men.
So what kind of resources do you actually provide to them? Is it just like a support system, or are you bringing them in and helping them roast and showing them, like giving them education? Like what are some of those things that you're helping with?
So mentorship's pretty frequent. Mentorship is just kind of like, I think I have 2 right now of folks that just have my cell phone number and just ask like, hey, what's happening? What in my area? Like what opportunities? Is there somebody I can connect with or shadow? Questions, a lot of it has to do with money. Like, hey, I need a raise. How do I go about asking my boss about that? So that's just kind of like the day-to-day stuff. We have scholarships that happen. Coffee Project New York does one every year with us. They're great. They offer a roasting foundations. It's an SCA pathway course to roasting. So it's very beginner level. I think we had 137 applicants last year.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot. Yeah. And then we're doing one for retreat, which is yet to be announced. So you heard it here first, folks. Just to get one person into retreat, full expenses. It's just really at the mercy of whoever wants to donate, because it's not a tax write-off. It's just literally out of the kindness of their heart. So.
Okay. That's good to know. So when you look at working with all of these women, you're giving them advice, things that you've learned maybe the hard way, along the way. What would you say is the best piece of advice that you tend to give, for any of those participating in She's the Roaster?
If I could go tell myself anything, I would have told myself to not get my feelings hurt so much about it. I think a lot of a younger roaster version of myself, you hear the negative things, they just happen. I wanted to fight that so badly and like correct it. And I feel like looking back, what was I going to do? It's just what it is. So yeah, just keep going. People can suck.
That is true. But I think to your point is that it really comes down to how you react to situations. Like you can actually help move it forward, by the reaction you have to maybe something that just isn't right or isn't optimal. And you can help sort of steer it in the right direction versus just coming up with guns blazing, right? Okay, so did you have any sort of career moment? I don't even want to say crazy story, but just anything that you're willing to share that drives home the impact that you're having, or is the impetus behind, sort of female empowerment and why it's so important to you?
Yeah, I our last She's the Roaster meetup. So I try to do one every time there's like a larger coffee event. So Expo's a great thing. We do one at Retreat. Retreat, the first year I went, the She's the Roaster meetup was maybe 15 people, maybe. And, because I have a big hand in planning Retreat, I'm busy. Like I'm just fully busy that whole weekend. So I didn't do a very good job wearing my volunteer hat and setting up a scheduled event for all of us to participate in. I showed up just imagining it would be 15 people again. And I want to say we had over 50. It was like maybe 60, 65 people.
Wow.
Yeah, just standing there with the mic. Like, of course, I just felt like a dingus. I was like, why didn't I plan anything or offer anything here? But at the same time, I just was like really moved. Because yeah, like I said, it's mostly an online presence. And unless there's an in-person event, which through COVID we didn't have, it doesn't really, She's a Roaster, the organization doesn't really do a lot. So to go out of, like COVID, I guess, and go to Retreat and just see like this mass amounts of people who are just like super excited about the project and like want to be together. I talked about it in another podcast too. I just don't celebrate enough. So I think when those moments happen, they like really shake me.
Yeah. No, and as they should though, right? It's this incredible feeling of community and impact, that you're having and that the group is having. So, okay. So I want to shift a little bit towards you and sort of some of your accomplishments. So are you also a Q grader?
I'm not. That's so funny. I have a lot of strong feelings about it. I think the analogy people can use is there's like chefs, right? Like very elite, like James Beard chefs. And then there's like cooks that like go chain smoke in the back alley on their 15-minute break and they just fry food. I feel like as a roaster, I'm just a cook. And I was just kind of against the idea of this elitist thing. I understand why we needed a system to score coffee. It made sense to me at Origin. It made sense to me in sourcing. But I'm pretty much anti any kind of, fancy woo-woo, any of that. So people, just common baristas and like them getting their cue, I was like, get out of here. And as a cook, like as a roaster, you your job is to make a product palatable for a consumer. And my stance was always that my consumer doesn't have like a virgin palate. They eat spicy food, they drink alcohol, if they smoke, like whatever it is, they're not Q graders. So why would I care what I'm tasting as a Q grader when my job is to make something sufficient for them?
Well, and it's so subjective. So I understand sort of your positioning is coffee flavor is so subjective. I'll jump into this because I think this is something interesting that I didn't really think about prior to getting into the world of coffee. But seems to be a debate going on between, let's call it coffee professionals, whether it's Q grader or whatever, and really the end customer and what those flavor preferences mean and what they are and what really is quality. You clearly shared your positioning on that, which I think is interesting because so far anybody in the industry that I've run across, I haven't heard say that. They're very much towards the Q grading system, if you will. So how do you think this needs to be bridged in the future? How does that actually, is there going to be a bridge, or do you just think that everybody is just going to choose ultimately what they want at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think, and like I said, there's a time and a place for it. Like if people do have their Q, like I'm not automatically like, oh, that's ridiculous. Like I see the value in having it. And I'm so happy that we have a system, because without that system, we could very poorly treat producers. And that's not lucrative to coffee or just humanity, right? So, very happy that we have that system in place. I think the way we talk about that system, like with the superiority to it, especially for folks that don't need it, and it kind of feels like this really, classist, like unattainable thing. People are like, well, I have my Q, and it's like, well, that's a lot of money and that's a lot of practice and time. And that's really cool that you have that, but that doesn't make whoever you're talking to lesser than,
Right. No, absolutely. I agree with that. So are you still roasting or are you selling green coffee now? Like where are you, what are you doing on your day-to-day basis as account manager for Ally?
I'm not roasting coffee, which is fine. It's fine. Everyone's very worried about me. It's fine. Ally, I'm selling green coffee. I mean, and I did it for so long and I love it so much. And it's funny because now when I go on a sales trip or when I go visit clients, I just magnetically pull to their roaster and I just want to talk to whoever's running that. Which, is maybe a great sales tactic. It's not a sales tactic though. I literally just missed the machine. But no, yeah, I'm selling green coffee. I love it so much more than I thought I would. I've officially turned into this monster that's like excited for work on Sunday, and I love my job and I am excited to do it. I took today off and I've checked my email about 6 times because I'm just excited to see what's going on. So yeah, I've reached this level of like happiness that professionally, like I never thought I was able to have. And yeah, I could just gush about it, but I'm really excited to be with Ally.
So wait, then why did you decide to move from roasting over to the sell side? It was like the perfect job. I didn't even want to move from roasting. It was like, I saw that Ally had a posting. I follow them on Instagram. I saw that they were hiring for like a Pacific Northwest account manager. And if you know me, you know that I'm from I-5. Like I've lived everywhere from like the Canadian border to Portland. I've been there in Washington. I've been around Oregon. Like this is my home. So I saw it and I was like, oh, that's cool. Whatever. And then a girlfriend texted me and said, hey, did you see that Ally was hiring? And I said, well, yeah. And she goes, but did you read it? Did you like read the description? I was like, oh, I guess I didn't. Opened it and I was like, I'll throw my hat in. And no one else knows this region like I know it, especially in coffee, especially for this long. And yeah, like 3 interviews later, I was like,
couldn't believe that they wanted somebody with no green sales experience. But yeah, I mean,
but you have incredible experience in the industry, and it's fun to sort of, change it up and see it from a different perspective. And you probably bring a different perspective to the table too, with all of your years of roasting experience in barista and end to end. So I think that's awesome that you just jumped in and are like, I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
So one of the other debates is with global warming, and we're hearing a lot about, gas versus electric roasters. So super curious if you have an opinion on that.
Yeah, that's funny. I don't know why somebody from Fresh Cup, Chloe, reached out to me and asked me to give some quotes on an article she just wrote about that recently. And that's so funny because I don't know how my name ever got brought up in an electric roasting community. Like, I've never roasted on an electric roaster. I shouldn't say I've never. I've never production roasted on one. I've never worked for a company that had one. So like, my opinion should be very low on the pole of what you consider important. But yeah, I think, some people argue that gas roasters have more control. And I think that part's true. Just when you think about, an electric range versus a gas range in your kitchen, you have more ability. You can climb faster and decrease heat faster with gas. Electric, that's kind of like a barge. You have to anticipate some turns here. But I mean, yeah, as far as sustainability goes, like, I have no qualms against electric roasting. I think it's great. One of the questions that I thought was really shocking was she asked me if I knew anyone that switched. And I was like, wow, I actually don't know anyone that like switches, because it's like kind of like a sports team. Like, you buy your roaster and that's your roaster. Like, you're not just like 5 years later, like, I'm kind of sick of it, I'm just going to swap it out. It's a lot of money and like you can sell them back, but nobody switches. So I said that.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you is around how you would describe yourself as a leader, but in 3 words, Baylee.
Chaotic. It was a good, and I'm going to argue that that's a positive also. Passionate. I guess that's also in the same file folder as chaotic. And just, I'm really empathetic. I'm really endearing. I don't want to say empathetic, but I deeply care for everyone, and I don't know why I'm that way. I don't know what happened in my life to make me care about everyone so much, because I'm really not even that much of a social person. I'm kind of, so it's funny that, yeah, I want to help everyone.
Well, I think one of the qualities of a great leader is empathy, is somebody who truly cares about the people around them and the people that they're leading. So that's an awesome quality to have. So who would you say is had the biggest impact on you, or it just been the most impactful or inspired you in your career?
My gosh, how much more time do we have? It's such a long list. Gosh, it's such a long list. I'm trying to think of like, I could literally equate every, job change or, project I've worked on to somebody. I didn't get anywhere on my own. So yeah, like we just talked about David Myers, who you and I both know. He nominated me for the Coffee Roasters Guild. He's the reason why I plan Retreat now, which is my favorite thing I've ever done in my career. Sarah Fernock hired me at Ally. That woman sat on 3 different interviews with me and listened to me talk about a region that she honestly doesn't even like. Jen Apodaca obviously is huge in this whole equation. Kat Melheim has been a coffee friend to me for so long. I feel like she and I have like grown in our careers together. And then there's just a long list of guys I've worked with that are like equal parts shitty older brothers and like friends and like work husbands, and are so toxic and amazing at the same time. Yeah, it's been really blessed for me.
That's awesome. I love how you say that they're toxic at the same time, because it's like this delicate balance.
No, for sure. There was a like thing there. They would end up saying like, a bag of coffee. I weigh about a bag of coffee. So it's 132 to 154 pounds, somewhere in there. And there was days where I'm like, I am woman, hear me roar. I'm going to pick up that bag. And then there would be days where I'm like, you guys, you got to go get it. I'm just a weak woman. And they're like, you can't do that. I'm like, if you're going to use my gender against me, I'm going to use it for me. So go get my bag of coffee.
That's in a fun way though. It's used in a fun way. So okay. So you have a list of things to be proud of, including the roles you've taken on with the SCA and the Roasters Guild, and, as well as having a strong voice in the industry, advocating for yourself, rightfully, and taking a seat at the table, which I have 3 wonderful girls, and I continually, try to, encourage them to advocate for themselves, just make a seat at the table for themselves. But looking back on your career so far, what would you say is the moment that you're most proud of?
That Standard publication, like hands down, that was it. I think that is the coolest thing that has ever happened to me. And I look at that sometimes and I'm like, it's out of body. I'm like, who is that girl? She's so like, really, wow. There's just like a picture of my dog and I in the centerfold. And I'm just rattling off. Yeah. Same things. Like I'm a coffee roaster from Tacoma, Washington that like started in drive-through and just worked with a bunch of people and met a cool cast of characters along the way and got help. But yeah, I have no idea how I got that opportunity. Ashley Rodriguez probably is how I got that opportunity, who also runs podcasts. She's fantastic. Thanks, Ashley, for that. But yeah, it's Standard for sure.
Is there a coffee publication that you reference that helps keep up with the trends in the industry or something like that? Or is Standard it? And I should be reading that.
No, Standard is very cool. And it is global. So I think Standard, one, it's like a beautiful coffee table publication that's just incredibly looking. But there's some roasting knowledge in there. I feel like I don't really do my due diligence and like reading up on trends and things like that. I'm kind of like, I don't know if I can say this. I'm like a fuck around and find out kind of a person. Like I just try it and error it and see how it ends up happening and going, which is not good because I've started a fair amount of fires doing that. But like literally and figurative fires. But yeah, Coffee People Zine. It's what Kat runs. It's a great place for people to just be creative in themselves and just network and put their name out. I'm pretty against a lot of like the big names in coffee education. I'm going to try to not name any of them, but
you're a contrarian. No, you don't have to name them. You don't have to name them.
Yeah, there is an old, let's see, I think I have it from, it is one of the largest things I can try to wrap my mind around as a roaster, and I still try. Jim Brady wrote a class for retreat in 2014, and I don't know how I ended up with the hard document of it, but I have like the hard copy. And yeah, that is one of the most complex copy literatures I've ever seen.
Wow. I love it. Jim Brady is phenomenal, by the way. I talked with him the other day. He is a wealth of knowledge and information and truly just an interesting person from top to bottom. So do you have any random fascinating facts that most coffee consumers probably don't know?
Oh, gosh. Well, it's going to be a fact for me. Coffee actually doesn't really have an expiration date. So a lot of the time in grocery stores, we'll see like a roasted date. I have a lot of feelings around that. There's an idea called reposar that some Central American producers use that essentially means if their green coffee sits for longer, it becomes better. Like it sits in its own acids and sweetnesses and kind of just enhances the flavor. I subscribe to that. And so I thought it was
wine.
Yeah. It literally translates to like to sit.
It feels a little bit like a marketing gimmick. When I think about I would buy in bulk for many, many years, right? In bulk, already ground. And it would last months and months and months and months, right? And it tasted great the first cup I had and great the last cup I had. And so, it does feel a little bit like marketing, because coffee is a staple, shelf stable item, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's marketing as much as it is like, it kind of just feels like people kept trying. Yeah, I guess it is kind of marketing, but I'm thinking of it in the perspective of like, yeah, like coffee can have oils that can go rancid. So like if it's a dark enough roast, that can happen. When that happens, it's so unattainably long from when you're talking about it. I mean, that would take like 2 years to do that. And even then, like, CO2, that's why all the coffee bags have that valve on it, because coffee just releases CO2. There's a reason why we don't want coffee right off of the roast, and that's because it's still doing that. So let's see, I roasted I think Sam was 2019 or 2018, the United States barista champion for that year. Her coffee was 27 days off roast. And she won the whole United States championship with it. So that should just go to say that it's arbitrary.
Yeah, 100%. That's actually interesting. I wonder if anybody really knows that, or if they put that out there. Cause that's a good, I'm a data person. So being able to point to a data point like that I think is pretty powerful. Only have a couple minutes left here. So I want to try to wrap this up. And I have what's called the U3 top 3. So very brief answers. And this is just sort of around, your preferences. So, your favorite brewing method?
Auto drip.
There you go. Okay. And so for consumption, like coffee drink of choice, is it a latte? Is it just black? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it, a specific origin or wash?
Hot all the time, black all the time, except if I go out for coffee, it's a ratio. So I want an 8-ounce latte. That's 2 shots of espresso and 6 ounces of milk. If I'm really tired, I'll do a 16-ounce quad shot, which is it's the same thing, just twice over and cheaper.
Perfect. That's actually like my daughter. So, okay, how many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
Like 13 to 18 cups, probably. Caffeine doesn't really affect me. Sugar does. So lots of caffeine.
There you go. I literally define mine in how many pots I have because I drink way too much coffee. Okay. So I want to give you an opportunity, Baylee, to share where someone can learn more about you or about Ally Coffee or She's the Roaster.
Ally Coffee has a website. Also, if you follow me on Instagram, you're going to see what I'm doing with them and what they're up to. And then as far as She's the Roaster, they also have an Instagram. So those are all really great places to go for that stuff. But yeah, I'm always attainable. So
that is perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and for helping us unite the world through coffee. And for just being here with us today, Baylee.
Thanks for having me, Chrissy. This was great.
Absolutely. And thanks to you, our followers, for joining us at U3 Coffee. We'll see you next time.